The Korean War is, usually remembered through terrain maps, frozen battle lines, and political stalemate. What is rarely discussed is that the war was also a logistical experiment conducted under extreme pressure, one that quietly reshaped how militaries thought about materials, especially wood. Timber was not a relic of earlier wars. It was structural, strategic, and honestly, when mishandled, a long-term liability. By late 1951, logistics officers and engineers began treating timber not as a stopgap material, but as a long-term asset. This shift, you see, changed how wood was stored, not just how it was used. Proper timber storage became a matter of strategic discipline, not craftsmanship alone. The key realization was simple but honestly costly to learn. Timber does not stabilize itself. It must be given time, airflow, and protection from uneven exposure. In response, the United States Army Corps of Engineers and Allied logistics units implemented storage practices that echoed pre-industrial shipyards more than modern depots. Lumber yards were reorganized with elevation as a priority. Timber was stacked on sleepers to keep it off the ground, preventing moisture wicking and fungal growth. This was not optional. Ground contact, even brief, introduced uneven moisture absorption that later translated into twisting and cupping. Stacks were aligned with prevailing winds, not convenience. Airflow mattered more than speed. Boards were stickered, separated by evenly spaced spaces to allow uniform drying. The thickness and placement of these spaces were standardized to prevent pressure points that could lock stress into the grain. Just as importantly, timber was shaded, not sealed. Many early failures came from attempts to tarp lumber too tightly. Trapped moisture encouraged mold and uneven drying. Later practices used overhead covers that blocked direct sun and rain while leaving sides open. This slowed drying, but controlled it. Slow drying was not a delay, it was an investment. The climate of the Korean peninsula punished shortcuts and rewarded restraint. Korea's seasonal swings were unforgiving. Summer monsoons saturated everything. Winter temperatures plunged well below freezing, locking moisture into wood fibres. Timber that dried too quickly in summer would crack, then absorb moisture again in autumn, then freeze and expand in winter. This cycle, frankly, magnified internal stress. To counter this, military storage yards tracked exposure time. Lumber was rotated, not left to chance. Older stock was moved forward for use, while newer cuts were given longer seasoning periods. This was not accidental success. It was the result of institutional humility, acknowledging that wood operates on biological time, not military schedules. Failures in timber storage quietly reshaped post-war military construction doctrine. After the armistice, engineers inspected surviving infrastructure. Patterns emerged. These findings influenced Cold War doctrine and training manuals. Manuals began emphasizing material life cycle, not just strength. Timber was no longer treated as disposable. Storage guidelines were formalized, sometimes with civilian forestry experts. The lessons extended to ammunition crates, vehicle decking and radio towers. Even aircraft hangars benefited from improved timber handling. For preparedness-minded people, this lesson is still relevant. The durability of wood is determined long before it is needed. Timber that survives decades does so because someone respected the process. This is not romantic craftsmanship, it is systems thinking. Wood is forgiving when treated correctly and unforgiving when rushed. When power and drying are unavailable, storage becomes critical. The Korean War showed that timber stored with intention can last for decades. Timber stored carelessly becomes a future problem. Remembering these lessons matters for both history and preparedness. If you value overlooked history, where logistics shape outcomes, consider subscribing.